and Joe know all there is to know, from masterpieces to deep fried tacos. And if the movie sucks, you might hear them say, there's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers. Real spoilers. Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude, this is Real Spoilers, episode 709?
Close.
710?
Which way?
7010?
710.
7010?
7,000 episodes, gentlemen. That's pretty impressive.
Oh, that's a quad dig.
That's quad dig, baby.
Yeah, band of bros.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's go around the table and everyone can introduce themselves.
This is Joe.
This is Kevin.
And this is Tom, and we have a guest today joining us via the magic of ZoomTube. Hello.
Hi,
Introduce yourself.
I'm Matthew St. Clair. I'm a freelance film journalist who can primarily be seen on The Film Experience and Awards Watch, and I also have my own newsletter on Substack, Cinematic Words of a Chaotic Gemini, because I'm a huge cinema guy, and I'm a Gemini, so...
Oh,
There
now
we go.
that is brilliant marketing.
Ta-da!
Yes, I like that. The branding, yes. And I saw Matt had seen this movie. You know, we're friends on Facebook, and I had seen him post his review, and I'm like, okay, good. I'm telling you right now, this movie, I did not expect it to be this good, but it's pretty funny.
It's really funny.
It is very, very funny.
It's very, very
I
funny.
totally agree.
Matt really enjoyed the movie from what I took from his review and his social media postings. Am I correct?
Definitely. I saw the movie back at TIFF,
Oh,
and I want to relive the experience of seeing the movie there, because
That's awesome.
Because for one, seeing it with a lively crowd was pretty neat, but also just for the sheer enjoyment of it.
you saw this again and at regular release?
I haven't. I was actually going to,
Yeah.
but I was going to yesterday, but then I saw my local Cineplex was having a double feature of Mummy and Bride of Frankenstein.
That's a
and
win.
I just could not pass that up.
No, I don't blame you at all. That's a big old win.
Yeah, but I bet this one would be fun with a crowd. But okay, I'll let you do your plugs real quick.
Okay, yeah. Before we get to end everything, shameless plugs. Don't forget we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find a podcast, you can find us. While you're there, be sure and follow us so you never miss an episode. Maybe leave us a review. That's super helpful and greatly appreciated. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. The group is called the League of Show Shares because we're hoping we'll share an episode. I actually have them this week.
Oh, you
Hey,
Yeah, that's good.
we're professionals.
Yeah. So people who were kind enough to share an episode include librarian Cynthia, Josh Rosen, Christopher Rex, Chris Valls, Heather Sachs, Julianne Jordan, Gabriel Lugo, Tammy Lynn Powers Betts, Glenn Cougar Mellenbrewer, Travis Tewitt, Leanne Boutisi.
Hey, I know that person.
Yeah,
Who is-
biblically?
Is that
Yes.
that person that's always on YouTube commenting about that
She
Joe
did.
guy?
She did once.
Oddly enough, no.
Oh, okay.
Chris Magic Man, Chris Williams, Edit Photo Gamer, L is not. It used to be L is not well, and now it's L is not. So
All right.
she's not okay, but she's
Better
no
than
longer
well?
not well. So
Okay.
that's good.
I'll take it.
I'll take that as I'll count that as a win. Mike, and Oscar, Vertigay 314, Invasion of the Remake, Linda Wright, Kathia Woods, D.W. Lundberg, Binge Movies, In Session Film, Ryan Terry from the Forza Crowd podcast, Feel and Film, Ronnie Castle, Matt Naglia, and Geek to Me Radio. So thank you very much. And finally, don't forget that we have a Patreon where for $5 a month you can get all sorts of bonus content, and you will secretly know that we like you extra, but it's not a secret.
And you'll find out what they're talking about there as soon as we do, because
man.
I don't know if they're doing Evil Dead the series. I don't know if they're doing Hellraiser.
Matt had some stuff. I had some stuff. We weren't able to record this week, but don't worry.
The
There's stuff
Hellraiser
coming.
Saturday morning cartoon.
I mean, sign me up.
They gave me an hour notice they weren't recording on Friday, so that was nice.
In our defense,
He said, hey, just to let you know.
we both knew we weren't recording 3 or 4 days prior to that.
Oh,
And that's on me. Like that was on me. He
That's
said
interesting.
He texted me and I was like, "Oh, no, that's perfect. I have my nephew." And then I forgot.
you forgot that I was on the show?
Yes.
Oh, well, glad I didn't move my schedule around.
Yes. So anyway, there's all that. Let's dig in, shall we?
So this movie was really fun, and the only thing that I have to say for my experience is I wish I had seen this with a crowd, much like when I had seen the last movie, and I was like, and I wish I saw it with a crowd, because comedies like this, and the laughter is infectious, and I thought it was a very fun movie. But did you guys end up getting to see it with a crowd?
Yeah, I saw a press screening, but luckily it wasn't a press screening with critics.
With just okay, because I was gonna say,
yeah, no, like clearly a lot of people from the gay community had been invited, and so it was definitely like they were having a blast with it, which made it more enjoyable.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool,
for
cool.
sure.
No, I mean, I had other people in the theater, but it wasn't a crowd. It was like one row of people, and then that was it. I saw it like late on a, I don't know, Thursday night.
And they were all there to protest.
I mean, given where I was in the theater where I
or
was
in the country.
Yeah, right. They definitely, the whole row in front of us were having a good time for
That's
sure.
good.
And that helped. That definitely, like you said, I think comedies, horror films, like you both kind of need those two like genres you need to see with an audience.
Yeah.
Is the best possible way to see those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I had a big crowd, but it was me and Katie, and then there was a group of 4 guys in the front, and then there was one woman to our right. It was like 5 other people in the theater. We were all enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's interesting because to me this felt like a very old school romantic comedy.
The beats of it are very much old school romantic comedy.
Yeah.
But the meat of it, the dressing, it isn't.
Yeah.
Right? And like
the
that's
situational
that's what
stuff.
makes it feel fresh.
With a
right?
little
Because-
Apatow
Yeah.
twist to it, like the Apatow raunch.
Yeah.
I guess is the best, because there are some scenes there's just, I mean, they don't shy away from anything,
For
and
sure.
it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like the way that they are integrated into the movie. I will say the only thing, kind of like in some of the romantic comedies of old, the love interest is kind of bland.
Yeah.
And that was my only complaint, is that I felt like Billy Eichner was so good that he overshadowed the dude who played the love interest, and he just kind of felt like he was, I mean, window dressing. And he's a good looking dude.
I thought he was
That's
really
awesome.
charismatic.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe it was just I just think sometimes you get an actor that just has like that pop of charisma that he kind of can overshadow everybody, and I think Billy Eichner is that guy where he's just so omnipresent on screen.
Well, of course. Yeah,
I mean, he's a big person.
He's yeah.
yeah. But so Luke McFarlane is the actor who plays
No
the
relation to Todd.
No, well, I don't know.
I guess that's
but
true. I don't know.
Not that I know of, but he has been in several Hallmark movies. So,
Which that makes okay.
I mean, he
That's
looks
kinda
like
great.
the
Yes.
leading man out of a Hallmark movie, and I thought it was funny when they had the parody of the Hallmark type of stuff in there. But I think it was clearly he was cast for that reason. But
I didn't realize that. That's pretty good.
But he's very chiseled jaw,
And he's
obviously in good
ripped to
shape
shreds,
and everything.
yes.
So he's a handsome guy.
He's Jesse Eisenberg to Channing Tatum's Michael Cera.
Oh, interesting.
They like the whole time I just kept thinking like they couldn't get Channing Tatum.
Oh, you thought he was not Channing Tatum,
Right.
I was trying to. There was at first Katie
Scott Eastwood.
Scott Eastwood. Katie
exactly what I
Katie called
thought.
him not Scott Eastwood because she goes no, Scott Eastwood is in this, and then he get at the club, and then he gets closer to the camera, and she goes, I'm starting to second guess myself, but that's exactly what she
Yeah.
called him, was more Scott Eastwood's. But I could see like with the chiseled jaw and the athletic shape and everything.
Yeah.
Matt, what did you think of the casting, and also as far as a member of the gay community, how do you think that the subject matter was handled?
Quite well. As for Luke McFarlane, well, for one, he's a better actor than Scott Eastwood.
Yeah. Oh. No arguments from us here.
Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
But also, I think with Luke McFarlane, I guess one reason I love his performance so much is that I feel like I can sort of identify with him, just someone who is gladly out, yet still has the slightly feeling of being an outsider, because he doesn't seem like a typical gay person. Because hopefully this doesn't come out wrong, but even I don't seem like a typical gay person because of my affinity for sports and my music, like alternative rock, like Gin Blossoms and Lifehouse. I'm like, this feeling like, do I conform? But the message I took away from Bro is that no matter gay people, no matter how they present themselves, shouldn't have to feel like they're performing or straight acting. They can be like, you can love going to the gym and sports and want to be a chocolatier.
Right.
For sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean
that's what I mean, the movie has many things of his mind, but that's the one on its mind, but that's the one message that really struck me.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because it's like I struggle with that from the opposite direction. That like I'm not gay, spoiler, but I love musicals and I hate sports and like my own dad at one point asked me,
Oh, really?
yeah, are you gay? And I'm
Oh,
like,
man.
no, I'm just really not good with women. Like but he was just like, but you're in all the plays and I'm just like, well, that's not.
That doesn't link up, Dad.
That's not a 1-to-1
Right,
thing,
right,
you know. But so it's it's interesting to hear you struggle with it from the opposite end of the spectrum.
It is
And I love the alt rock.
Yeah, you do.
I do have that part.
That's a given.
I got the alt rock gene.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
Attaboy. It is interesting though. Like I do think that Matt, to your point, is I think that film has kind of always done the stereotypical gay dude, right?
Yeah.
Like they've always kind of leaned into that. So to see, what's the guy's name? Luke McFarlane. To see like this character not do any of that, and Billy Eichner obviously. I don't think this is much of a stretch of a character for him.
Well,
I think he's playing himself.
Well, I think it was interesting when in this movie at times they say the whole tone it down thing, which I get what they're trying to say, but I'm like, this Billy Eichner is way more reserved than the Billy Eichner TV personality.
I'm like Billy Eichner does need to tone it down, but not the gay stuff.
No, the energy stuff.
Like like I referred to him the other day as somebody I was trying to explain to someone who wasn't familiar who he was, and I was like, he's like the gay Bobcat Goldthwait, right? Like there's just lots.
There's no zero.
There's just lots of yelling.
Yeah, and that's what I thought was
always at 11.
Yeah. And so I know in this movie, when they say tone it down, they didn't even really necessarily mean the gay stuff. They meant like the personality and your mouth keeps running and talking and everything. And I was thinking, man, this is the most subdued performance I've ever seen of Billy Eichner.
Yeah, watching him in like Billy on the Street or The Office.
Well, I mean, because Billy on the Street,
Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
And Billy on the Street, he's just running up to people and yelling in their faces. That is his character for his most famous thing.
Right.
But I thought he was really good. Circling back to the message of the movie, I thought what Matt said was beautiful because that's one of the main takeaways that I brought from it was that we're all people, right? It doesn't matter your sexual orientation. Like that doesn't define you. And the things that you like, I mean, that's just a part of being a human. You like this music or working out or sports or podcasting or interviews, whatever you do. And it's not like you shouldn't have to conform to this because it's a stereotype or this is the majority of one person acts like this, whatever. And I thought that was so great. And to show a character like, first of all, to have the leading couple in a romantic comedy of a studio film be gay.
Okay.
And then played by gay actors.
Yeah.
And then the message that they're trying to push here about, don't change who you are. Don't lie about yourself. Be yourself, right? And that message, I just thought it was wonderfully handled in a way that felt very authentic and not preachy.
Yeah.
And
well, what I liked about it is it didn't straight wash what the gay lifestyle looks like.
That's true.
And I'm not gonna lie, the only thing I really know about the gay lifestyle, as it were, is what I know from listening to Savage Love, right?
Sure.
But I do know from that like it's different in that, and you see this in the movie, that in terms of open relationships, and not that every gay couple has one, but it's not uncommon,
right,
in a way that you don't see it in the straight community, or at least the straight community doesn't let you see it.
There it is.
Right, there's that.
Yeah,
right.
And so I thought it was nice to see that, and I think that probably will be off-putting to some people, or it will be new information for some people. But I thought that was really smart and brave to I'm not gonna dial this down for the straight crowd.
Yeah, so I guess that's my question. Is this written and directed or written by a gay dude?
It's written by him, isn't it?
Is
it
Billy?
But I thought there was somebody else.
Nicholas Stoller.
Oh, okay.
Who directed?
Yeah, Nicholas Stoller is straight, and he co-wrote the script with Billy Eichner.
Okay, but I think that's also the factor, right? We kind of talked about there was something we just reviewed where it's like it came from a woman's point of view. I wish I could remember what it was, but it felt, even though it came from a woman's point of view, maybe it was
it Barbarian?
Don't worry, darling, because it was written by the Van Dyke grandchildren,
that's
and
what
then
it was.
she took it
and then kind of redid
and wrote
it and mucked it up a little. That's neither here nor there. You listen to that episode, it's out now. But I think having that point of view does make it more real.
Yeah.
And not, straight washing it.
Matt, overall, did you feel that their representation, what Billy Eichner was writing about just the dating and the, just all these things, did it feel authentic to you?
Yeah. I won't go into too much detail, but I've had
Sure.
my experience dating men who have been
Yeah.
from open relationships, so it is fairly accurate. And I do admire just how unapologetically frank
Yeah.
it is in its sexual content, because you don't. I guess that's one thing about it that's so groundbreaking. Because on a mainstream gay rom-com like this, you don't see that kind of. You don't see that kind of gay sexual content.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because like we were saying, this being a studio romantic comedy, they easily could just say, here, the two lead characters are gay, and
Yeah.
then just put them in every
They
romantic.
could take a Sandra Bullock script and just be like, make her a dude, go.
Right,
And
not
they didn't.
and not
Yeah.
focus on any of the other parts of the gay lifestyle, any of the like when he has Grindr and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and going to the club. Like
Right.
they actually tailored it to different experiences instead of, like you said, search and replace to it's just a gay love interest instead of straight.
Right.
Well, I think it's kind of the Guess Who's Coming to Dinner of vacation of gay people, right?
Okay.
Like when Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Sidney Poitier, Spencer Tracy,
Yeah.
Katharine Hepburn.
Bernie Mac and Ashton Kutcher. I get you.
Yeah, the remake, yes. But, like that was a groundbreaking film for its time, the idea of this white girl bringing home a black man to meet the family. And now you look at it and it's a little cringy because it's like, I mean, they have to set Sidney Poitier's character up to be like this perfect thing.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Like he's a doctor, and I think he was like somewhere overseas helping sick people. Like it was, I
Right.
mean, it was just like, he's just this perfect thing that you could never have any flaws in.
Right.
And so you would see that in the kind of message movies for a long time. And I think that happens with gay characters sometimes, is that they're either, before people were more self-aware, they were either like creepy villains,
Yeah.
or they were these perfect things that just existed to be the best friend or something like that.
Right.
And so
And the characters are flawed because
Right.
they're human.
And everybody's flawed, right?
Right?
Everybody
Yeah.
has their own
Yeah.
stuff going on.
About what you guys said about the nature of the gay characters having to have pitch perfect representation. That honestly, it's what bugged me so much about the discourse surrounding Happiest Season with Kristen Stewart and Mackenzie Davis.
Yeah.
I feel like the criticism came from it not having the ending that they wanted, because even though it's easy to see Harper as the villain, she's real. With the Mackenzie Davis character, she's still, I see her as a flawed human being, like petrified of what would happen if her parents found out she was gay. And I feel like by showing her as a normal flawed human, it's showing how everyone's coming out journey is not all sunshine and roses.
for sure, I know my problem with that movie, was it Aubrey Plaza who pops up as the friend from high school?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, I like that relationship better. Like
Oh.
Yeah, like that's like that. My problem with that is, I mean, it's not like that isn't the issue. It's just people hated it because it wasn't the ending they wanted.
right.
Yeah. That's hard sometimes when you project certain things onto movies and feel like that, why'd you do it this way?
By and large, the reviews have been positive, but
Yeah.
the complaints people seem to have, even if they like it, is that it so much follows the beats of a rom-com.
Very much so.
And I'm just like, but then you're missing the point.
Well, I
That's
think-
like, I like Singing in the Rain, but do they need to sing all the time?
The beauty of this
Exactly.
film is showing you can have a traditional rom-com with gay characters.
Right, like the whole point is like, not everything needs to have this tragic ending. Like, it's
Or-
okay
But
to
not everything
yeah.
has to be like what Matt was saying earlier. Your idea of what a gay movie should
Right.
be. Should it be flamboyant? Should it be ultra colorful? Should they sing? I mean, what do you want it to be? It's like, no, it's a romantic comedy.
I mean, they do sing.
But it's like, what is your idea of what a gay romantic comedy? No, the point
Well-
is they're humans and it's a romantic comedy.
I think
right.
I think to that point, we've had the romantic comedy has kind of been altered since Crazy Stupid Love. I think that which is I think one of the greatest
Oh my
romantic
gosh.
comedies of
I think
all time. But like that doesn't follow the traditional beats of a romantic comedy, right? It is
Sure.
at its core, but it just doesn't follow that. And I think this is definitely this is a throwback to like what was the the Kate Hudson, Matthew McConaughey
Right.
movies, or the
All
Renee-
that stuff.
Yeah,
or
all
the
of
Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan
Absolutely,
stuff.
which
That's
is
what
definitely this
Don't
is
they even
like
show
the-
You've Got Mail in
Yes.
this movie?
Yeah. Or When Harry Met Sally, all the
Which-
Nora
yeah.
Ephron stuff.
Yeah, I think so. It is. I mean, people who watch movies, right, know that the quote unquote romantic comedy from the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s did follow. Like, okay, they don't like each other. They're gonna hang out.
Right.
They're gonna like each other. There's
And
gonna be some conflict
That
that's gonna make them split up.
That construct goes all the way back to It Happened One Night
Yeah.
with Clark Gable, like
Yep.
1934. They've been remaking that movie for almost 100 years. Yeah.
Or His Girl Friday.
Yeah,
With
all of it.
Cary Grant and Rosalind Russell just
for sure.
always
Yeah.
being at odds with each
It's-
other.
It's like
Moonlighting.
if it ain't broke, don't
That's
fix
exactly
it, right?
it.
Like
That's
that's
exactly
what
it.
it's. People
And-
love that.
And then the way they make it fresh is they put it in a new setting.
Right.
Right.
Like in its, it's like a, he's a firefighter and she's an arson inspector with a heart of gold. This summer, it's Matthew McConaughey and Sandra Bullock in Too Hot to Handle. Right?
Were they ever in the same movie together?
I don't know. They were in my head just now.
yeah,
Were you listening?
I just saw the whole thing.
Let's edit that out.
All right.
just in case, like we get like all of a sudden here's Matthew McConaughey. He's like, I'll go back to the rom-coms for a little bit.
I'll make that. I just want a story by credit. So, but yeah, and that's part of what makes this movie feel fresh, even though it's laid over these beats that are almost 100 years old, is because this is a view we've never seen represented in a rom-com.
Yeah, which I think is great.
Right.
So plot-wise, speaking of representation, the real representation here, another podcaster in movies. Every character in a movie.
That part, so that's one of my complaints about like that opening scene where he's podcasting. Like, one, podcasts don't have live phone calls.
That's also true.
That's not a thing.
Can't
That
do it.
was weird when he had a caller. I guess it was
Yeah.
more like a radio show that's in a podcast form, but he was doing a radio show essentially.
Yeah, but then
No, because they say the
says-
podcast
he
is
says
blown.
No. But I mean, like, you can live stream a podcast, and you could have calls, like in theory. But then you're basically doing a radio form,
Right.
but releasing it as a
I got
podcast.
you.
He's doing a radio show.
also
Yes.
it was some very lazy exposition.
Very
like,
much so.
right? Like, I mean, fair's fair. That was some very lazy. And also, he has this huge podcast that then never gets mentioned again.
Okay. I'm glad you said that. 2/3 through the movie, I go, is he ever going to podcast? He had 400,000 people watching his podcast
Right.
in the opening, and he never podcasts again.
That's also like you do have to stay consistent.
You don't pod fade at that point.
Yeah.
Like you're fully monetized, man. You're talking about Blue Chew and Liquid
yeah.
Death and BetterHelp.
Oh man, Matt Reedy's feed is gonna go crazy.
It was so funny how they never even show him like in a scene, like being part of the plot, like, oh, I have to go record my podcast. Like, how do they never mention the 500,000 listeners?
And you got to figure he's doing what, one a week, maybe.
Well, I mean,
You would think
top
at
if you have,
least.
like,
at the least.
if you have 400,000 people, you're probably doing a daily, like
that's
a Monday
probably
through
true.
Friday
You got a
podcast.
Patreon that you're not
Anyway,
recording
but it
because
was
people had to
funny
go out of
that
town.
they did use it as kind of a way to set it up, because honestly, he could have just been a museum curator. He didn't have to be a podcaster.
It was just they had to give you an information dump.
What can
at
we
the
do?
beginning.
What can we
Yeah.
do? Oh, he's a podcaster.
So it was very interesting
That
to
we'll
set
never talk about ever
But I
again.
thought, like, when Halloween 2018 came
Yeah.
out, we were like, oh, a podcaster on the big screen. Seriously, how many movies now do we review and there's a podcaster in it? But I guess it just shows you how mainstream podcast.
Yeah.
But
it is. But, man,
It was
those-
very funny, though, because what was the last one?
Those
We
poor
j-
podcasters
we
on
just
Halloween.
covered a movie that had a podcaster in it, I swear.
Vengeance.
Vengeance.
Okay, so that was like the premise of it. Just
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
That was a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
Maybe for Halloween Kills or Ends, they'll bring a podcaster back to.
I hope
about-
so, to finish
talk
up.
Talk about the podcasters
Oh.
that Michael Myers killed.
Blair Witch. We found the podcast. You know, they were doing a podcast
Oh
on the road
my-
and interviewing.
Yeah.
We found the podcast,
That's
and we're
where-
going to
yeah.
finish it.
They. Oh my God. Take that out too. I don't want the. Make sure that nobody takes that idea. Oh, was
Oh.
that the premise for the last one?
Oh, I don't know. I just made it up.
That's what I'm
It's gonna-
saying. Don't
it's gonna
put
be the
that out.
premise of our
Don't put
movie.
that out there. God dang it.
The hidden podcast. All right.
But yeah, we're introduced to Billy Eichner, and he's this podcaster, and he basically says, "I don't want a relationship. I don't want. I'm happy being single, but I'm not really happy being single. Like he kind of like alludes to that.
Yeah.
And then it's revealed that he has become the curator for the very first LGBTQA+ history museum. And it's not like he wants to get into the actual history of the struggle and the people who were on the front lines in the very beginning of this whole thing, of people coming out and expressing themselves and their own sexuality. And it's also like you get a really fun group where they're all just trying to get their own stuff into the museum, and I like them as a group where they're all not friends, but they're like, that's the way I took it, is like we're cordial because we work together, but we are not.
But they don't have anything in common
Correct.
other than straight world thinks they have sex weird.
That's right.
Right? Like that's the only ultimate thing they have in common, which I thought was a funny dynamic and something you don't see in movies very much, is the kind of infighting in that world.
Yeah.
Of, there is this thought of like people think, oh, put a straight white guy or put a cisgendered gay white guy in your movie, and you've represented the LGBTQ
Done.
world. And
True.
it's
That's
like,
not
but
the case
but,
anymore.
Yeah, but you left out a lot of letters, right? And so,
And that's what Billy Eichner in the movie even says that, right?
Right.
He keeps
Yeah.
referring to himself as cis white gay
Right.
guy, right? And so they're pointing that out. There's so many different types in that spectrum, and the representation is really good with that group at the museum, right? Because you're showing all different sorts of people.
Right.
I think that's when he complains about like the Hallmark movies starting to
He
incorporate
does,
that.
yes.
Like
Yeah.
they have a very straight washed version of it. And so I think that's clearly very purposeful of is that he also knows, even as someone who is in an oppressed community, he has this privilege that of that oppressed world that
Oh, sure.
he's the least
He has it
oppressed.
easier.
Right? There's way more people
Right.
that are accepting of his lifestyle than are accepting of a trans lifestyle.
Sure.
And
yeah.
using the Hallmark movies was very clever to show
Yeah.
like, oh, it's their very minimal effort for that representation, right? With those
the
movies.
Polly one at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the best.
Holly
Those were good.
Holly Holly Christmas.
And it was
just
called,
hilarious.
it was like Hall Hark or something. It was like
Hall
a
Heart.
Hall Heart. Okay.
Heart Mark?
No, it was
Hall Heart.
Hall Heart.
I think it was Hall Heart.
Okay.
But because at first when he said it and they were kind of making fun of them, I'm like, did they just use Hallmark?
I
'Cause
did
it
think the same
sounded-
thing. I was like, man, that's a bold move.
The first one, I think they probably purposely said it. It sounded just like Hallmark.
Yeah, right.
And then you saw it and they kept saying it. I'm like, oh, they did change
Do
it.
they? I honestly, I pay no attention to that. Do they? Are they only on TV? Like, are they like attached to ABC, or is it just whoever picks
The
it up?
Hallmark channel, right?
There's a Hallmark channel.
But they're not like the Hallmark Channel isn't like a subsidiary of somebody else, right? Or are they? Their
Oh,
own,
I don't know.
are they
Someone
their own
probably
thing?
owns them. They all
Probably at some
own
point.
everything.
Somebody
Everything.
owns
But-
But
everything.
they're their own channel though, so they
Yeah.
make tons of movies, especially over the holidays. Don't they do like one a day starting in
I mean,
November? or
they
something?
they have the content that they've already created, and then they also have like every year they make like it's like
Tons.
30 to 60,
Yeah.
and then Lifetime does it too.
Oh,
and
right,
then now
right,
there's a
right.
new one starting up.
Yeah, Netflix.
Well, no, but there's a new like Hallmark style channel.
Oh.
because they just poached like Candace whatever from Full House.
Candace Cameron.
Candace Cameron
There,
Bure.
Bure.
there we go. Yeah, and they poached a couple other people that were in all these Hallmark movies to
Oh.
come over there. And I think what's driving that is Hallmark has been getting more inclusive. As much as this movie bags on their version of inclusive, like Hallmark's been getting more inclusive, and this new channel is starting up that's like, no, come over here. And so like, because that
Well,
Candace
Candace
Bure,
can't- yeah, right, there's
is
one.
is very conservative. So they're poaching the
Oh.
more conservative ones over to do the old fashioned, big city girl learns that
Christmas
she
in-
should be home making cookies.
But that's another reason why I think that Luke McFarlane is such perfect casting, especially when I looked him up and he's been in the Hallmark movies, because he's such a believable romantic lead, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh well, he literally is.
Right. So yeah, they Billy Eichner goes to like a dinner, and we're introduced to kind of his group of friends, and it is interesting to see like when the two dudes introduce that they're in a throuple.
Yeah.
Like even Billy Eichner was like, "What are you doing?" So it's interesting to see even someone who is in the gay community is also like, "You're out of your mind with this choice that you're making with your life." So I did find that also kind of interesting. But yeah, you've got the
because it doesn't like that is a subject which would be they would raise eyebrows no matter what community or your orientation or whatever. It's like that's a whole nother person in a relationship, and relationships are hard enough with two people.
we're both dating him, and he's just like,
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. The cutaway gag with the grandma.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. As soon as that happened, I'm like, okay, we're in this movie.
well,
I like
to me that feels like Judd Apatow.
right.
There
Yeah.
are certain beats in this movie where I was like, well, there he is, there he is, there he is. So, but
But it's also like Nicholas Stoller. I think he wrote those Muppet movies.
Yeah.
Right. So like he's a very funny guy, and those Muppet movies are amazing. The new Muppet movies, they did a great job with them. So Nicholas Stoller co-writing this with
Absolutely.
Billy Eichner, I think those two did a great job, and Billy Eichner brought a lot of his experiences and obviously these points that he does a really good job portraying this character and driving these points home that we've talked about. And then I think Nicholas Stoller with the comedy that we've seen in his other comedy, I mean, he's great at comedy, and so the
absolutely.
two work
And
very well.
I will say, like,
Yeah.
trying.
I'm a bit of a Nicholas Stoller fan.
Yeah, he's great.
Particularly because of how he, along with Paul Feig, helped introduce Rose Byrne as a comic genius.
Oh my gosh, yes, the Spy, Rose Byrne and Spy.
Even in Bridesmaids.
Oh,
She's
true,
great.
it's
She's
true.
great in
Or
Bridesmaids.
Neighbors.
Oh,
Neighbors,
Neighbors.
yeah.
That's fantastic.
I like Neighbors. Wasn't there a second one?
There's a second
I never
one.
saw the second one,
Second
but the
one's-
first one was funny.
The second one's got what's Hit Girl.
Oh, okay.
Is the-
Chloe Moretz.
Yes, thank you.
I like Zac Efron. I think he's good. Like you know how a lot of people he got in the Pattinson and we were talking a little bit about Harry Styles, even though he's not quite there yet. He's just starting more with the acting. But I mean, when people typecast people, oh, you're this, right? You've been in this teen
You're
movie.
the
You've
pretty
been-
boy.
right? And
Yeah.
and so Zac
It's the
Efron,
bane of my existence.
I
man.
know, Tom
Yeah.
deals with it
Welcome
every
to my. Now you're seeing it. Welcome to my world.
the pretty boy of the podcast. but Zac Efron got typecast in that High School Musical, right?
Yeah.
It
Oh,
was
yeah. Big
just
time.
like the other ones in their things. But he's really good. I think he's good
I think
in comedy.
he's very
Yeah.
funny.
good and dramatic stuff.
What was the?
You liked him in that DJ movie? Is your favorite?
Oh my god, that movie's so bad. Is that time travel?
Which one?
Was that the one that was? What's the one
Time
where like
travel. I don't think Zac
Project
Efron.
Almanac? Is he not
No,
in that?
I don't think
No,
he's in
he's
that.
not in
no.
that.
What was the
No.
DJ one?
The
We
these
Are Your
my
Friends.
We're your friends.
Oh.
Yeah.
yeah. Directed by Max from Catfish.
Yeah, what a garbage movie that
So
was. Go back and find if you can find that in the feed somewhere. That is early on and real spoilers, but that movie
It
sucks.
was bad.
He's my
But not because Zac Efron.
No.
No.
He's Johnny Storm. If they don't cast him as Johnny Storm, that is a missed opportunity.
I didn't know it was directed by the Catfish guy.
Yeah, that was he left Catfish for
To do that?
and
Oh.
then came back,
Back to-
and now he's gone again. But yeah,
Woof.
yeah,
He's directing We Are Your Friends too.
yeah.
We're still your friends.
Well, man, if they get to We're Your Friends too, I quit.
Then Hollywood is officially out of IPs to reboot.
No kidding. No
Yeah.
joke. So he announced, they had this really funny scene where they're all arguing over who, bisexuality awareness week, and then
Back at the museum.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Billy Eichner's just kind of living his life, and he ends up going to this club, and he's talking. Who I thought this friend is the guy that I wanted to be like.
he was
the friend.
hilarious. That
Yeah.
one.
That dude is amazing.
I think it's Guy Branum.
Oh man.
Who plays
Yeah,
Henry. He was hilarious.
I was really hoping that they
And
would
I also-
give
Yeah.
him a straight best friend. The
Oh,
same
to
way
make
that,
the
the same
stereotypical-
way that the straight people
That would've
always
been
have the
kinda
gay
funny.
best friend.
Right.
I loved Guy Branum.
Yeah.
I especially loved how, even though he's the plus sized gay sidekick in a raunchy comedy, his fatness is never a punchline.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
sure,
that's a good
sure.
point.
I love that. I love that very much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that was great. I noticed that too when I was watching. I'm like, yeah, they're not being mean about the way he looks or anything. He's
Yeah.
just the best friend. And his remarks about
oh
like
my
the old
God.
guy.
He looks like a ripped Dumbledore.
Yeah. Every single time he opened his mouth, every line from him, he was hilarious. And I think he even made Billy Eichner break at one point because his
Oh,
character
really?
was not laughing in the movie. And he says something, one of those lines. It might have been the Dumbledore
so
one,
good.
something. And you see Billy Eichner laugh. And it seemed like he made him break. I can imagine.
I will say though, when they showed that guy, I was like, no, I get it.
Yeah.
He's a ripped Dumbledore. That's an impressive looking man.
Hilarious.
So and it's this point that typical romantic comedy, your lead sees who's going to be the love interest from across the room,
Mm-hmm.
and of course this guy, I do like where I think before he goes to the club, she's like, oh, you're going to that one of the friends. It's like
He
you're
goes to
going,
his sister.
oh,
and
that's
then-
right. Is that right?
Yeah, he goes to his sister's house, and then another thing that they don't.
Are you going to that club where you're going to take your shirt off? He's like, I don't take my shirt off.
You think of the stereotypical clubs, and they cut to it, and everyone's dancing
Everybody's
with their
without
shirts
shirts
off.
off.
But what they do that you never really see though is they with the kid, right? Like he says, or should we be talking about this around him?
Like
And
they're like a little too accepting. Like
Yeah, where he says, I wish that like gay sex was more taboo among
Right.
straight people. Yeah,
but so they're talking about it, and I just thought that was refreshing because it comes up again when Billy Eichner's talking to Luke McFarlane's mom and later. But it's like they're not shying away because just like in the way that kids, I mean, yeah, you're right. Maybe it's a little too much, but for the comedy. But the point is, you don't shy away from saying that these straight people are in a relationship around kids, right? And so it's like,
but they were straight up talking about anal sex in front of their kids.
For
And
the,
so, like,
for the joke, yes, obviously.
What
that,
is it? Oh, it was the bottom dance.
Yeah.
Right.
He was like, oh god,
that was the joke to make it awkward, whatever. But the point, though, I liked they made where they were just at least open about talking about, these people are gay, and later on again when he brings it up around the kids, this is a good time to introduce to
real
them.
quick. Is the woman that plays Luke McFarlane's mom was the neighbor off Married with Children, right?
Is that who she was? She looked familiar,
That's
but
who
I
I-
couldn't place her.
But like
couldn't-
in Married with Children, I think she comes out as gay.
I think the actress is as well.
That's
and
what I
that's why
thought.
they
Okay.
wrote that storyline.
Okay, that makes sense. But I'm
I
pretty
believe.
sure
Amanda Bierce, and she's in Married with Children.
Yeah,
Is
she
her
was.
second.
She
known-
was the neighbor,
Marcy.
Marcy. Oh man,
Okay.
Marcy was the worst.
That was
Although-
really fun at the end.
Although points to Joe for referencing her from being in Married with Children and not from Fright Night.
I knew she was.
Right.
I know she. Trust me.
that's her number
She-
one known for.
It is that she was the girlfriend in Fright Night. that-
Okay.
Also, man, that if you've never seen Fright Night, do yourself a favor and do it.
Oh,
'cause
yeah,
it's
it's fun.
amazing.
Yeah,
It's
that's-
so good.
yeah.
So
The first one was fun.
Bobby, who is Billy Eichner's character, sees Aaron
Aaron.
Luke McFarlane from
Yes,
across the room,
and they.
and the friend Henry says like, everyone says he's boring, and
And
it's
I will
talking
say,
bad about him.
like, he does come off boring. Like in this initial interaction between the two, he does kind of come off boring.
Which is the point of the
Which is
character
the
because
point,
he's
yes.
working his suit and tie job. He hates his life, and he's not. I wouldn't say trying to hide,
I
but
think
he just
he's the exact same person. Almost like his characteristics are the exact same as Bobby's, in that he doesn't really want a relationship. He's just kind of doing his own thing. Like he's telling Bobby, right? He's like, I'm gonna go have sex with this guy and his husband when we leave here, and he was just like, what? Wait, what? So
it's very
like,
matter of fact.
yeah, he's very matter of fact, and he pulls a Batman where like they're in this conversation, and Billy Eichner does say something that's kind of dickish.
Yeah.
And he turns around and Aaron's gone. Like
Yeah.
and we don't see him leave. Like even as a viewer of the movie, we don't see
Well,
him
right.
walk
It's a
away.
cut. They cut to close up on Bobby, and then they cut back, and
Which seems
wide
like
view,
a
and he's gone.
very like comedy trope.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like if you set that somewhere in like an office, it's the same thing. Where it's like, wait, what the hell happened?
Yeah, and he
Right.
does it to him multiple times. He keeps disappearing on him. And the thing, and I guess the thing is that you're right. Even more so than Bobby, Aaron's thing is that he's just so not looking for anything. He likes the way his life is. He's not trying to get into anything. And Bobby keeps saying things where he's just like, "Oh no, this guy wants more. I'm not."
Oh, you think
committing."
that way? I definitely feel
I
that
read
way.
it.
Like as they're progressing.
Remember when he tried to kiss him and he didn't want it? Like he's very
That's
much like,
true.
I don't even want. This is getting too close to a relationship. Even in the beginning, like even I think he could just read that Bobby wanted more than he was comfortable with.
Right.
He wanted to go hook up with the guy and his husband. That's his, no strings attached. And I think the kissing and the moment they had, almost like a little meet cute moment, like
Right.
a rom-com.
Very much so. Yeah.
And so that was like, nope, I'm out of here.
Yeah. So that becomes our focus for the most part. Is Billy Eichner's trying to get this museum up and going, and it's been pushed back. Like the opening has been pushed back a couple times.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of fear that this isn't going to happen. I think the Deborah Messing scene is amazing.
Yeah.
was great. Deborah
I
Messing.
love that scene so much.
Yeah,
It
that
was great. And it's so true about any kind of actor.
Yeah,
and
it's
their
like I have no idea if it's true, but it's true.
I think it might be true for her.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, how long did that series run?
It was like 7 or 8 seasons,
And then it got
they
a
brought
reboot?
it back for. I think it only ended up lasting 1 season as a reboot. Maybe it was 2.
Maybe two.
Well, we've talked about this with TV characters. There's something so personal as an audience, and I'm not saying necessarily any of us are like this, but when you come into someone's home for a decade.
Yeah.
Once a week and reruns. You
For
feel
sure.
like you have this connection to them and they become the character. Like
Right.
you don't. There's no disconnect. You just see that you see her as Grace, and she's like, "I'm not
Yeah.
Grace. I played a character."
Well, and then add to the fact that like that was the only version of gayness on television.
I was thinking
at
the
time.
same thing.
So
Yeah.
so if you were in any part of that community, like you probably watched that, and it was really
True.
important to you. So it's
Did they? I feel like that. I remember watching that show from start to finish. Like,
Yeah.
but
I
did
watched
they,
it
Did
too
they
when
partner
they-
that with something?
I mean
Like it was like
it was
TGIF, right?
part of the Thursday
Thursday
night NBC lineup.
yeah,
I thought,
okay.
yeah.
That's a good point. I never really think back to, like I said, I watched that when it aired and thought it was really funny. And
I think
never
it was like a middle show. I feel like it was either like in between.
It
Friends
went like
and Seinfeld.
Friends, Will and Grace, Seinfeld, or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that must be one of the first like mainstream gay representation in a TV show, like to have the main characters be the
So the
focus.
first reoccurring gay character on a sitcom, you want to go down this rabbit hole with me? Because I'll do it. I'll do
Well,
it.
not first,
the first
but the
reoccurring
focus.
gay would have been Billy
Yeah.
Crystal on Soap.
Oh,
And-
sure.
And if you go back and watch that, it is not aged well. Their heart was in the right place, but they had no idea what gayness looked like. He starts off being very effeminate. I mean, like, very.
Well, yeah, the
effeminate.
first clue you said it's Billy Crystal.
Yes.
So I mean,
and then at one point his character wants to have a sex change, which that's not, as we would define it now, necessarily quote unquote gay,
Right.
That's trans. And then he has the epiphany that that's not what he wants. And so and then I will say, after that storyline at the very beginning, they kind of dial that, they tone
gotcha.
that down, and he's still gay, but he's not quite as prancy
I got you.
and as he is at the beginning.
but the show Will and Grace, Will is
This is the first show
openly gay,
focused
and
around yes.
that's a huge milestone in
sure.
history and representation. So you're right, that would be a very important TV show to people
yeah.
in the community, and I can see how they would even latch on to her as the character even more. But it is funny because we've brought that up, how it's like these are actors playing a role,
Right.
and people come to them like they're
You know-
best friends. Something about television where it's like, hey, how's it going? And this person's like, this is a total stranger. I don't know them, but you feel like you know the person.
I feel like who I think that probably affects the most.
Who's that?
Wrestlers.
Oh, true.
You know, like
Yeah.
those guys play characters on TV, and then they have to go into public.
and they play
they-
the character.
The
They
Hulk
live
Hogan
the
on
character.
TV is not Hulk Hogan at home,
Yeah.
but when he does appearances, he's got to be Hulk Hogan.
Right,
You
that's
know,
true.
like,
It follows
yeah.
them off the TV
Yeah.
into their public appearances, and they're like method acting their
Kinda,
whole life.
and not-
really.
obviously-
Maybe even Simon Cowell. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah,
great,
for sure.
That's a great point.
Or like what's the Gordon Ramsay? I heard
Gordon
he's
Ramsay?
nice in real life, but he does have a kind of a character that follows
for
him.
sure. Watch him do MasterChef Junior compared to MasterChef.
Yeah, I heard
It's
he's
like,
really nice to the
very
kids.
nice to the kids.
Don Rickles.
Don Rickles
right?
is a
Like,
great.
and
yeah.
Rickles.
people
Oh
would
my
get to the
gosh.
point where they're like, I want Don
Do the
Rickles
mean
to
thing,
insult
yeah,
me.
if you-
Like,
Larry
call
the-
me a hockey puck.
Larry the Cable Guy and Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
are two prime examples.
Yeah, the character that follows them. So you're right.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, that was a very funny written scene. And I wonder if that's Billy Eichner also writing.
He's like, can
I mean-
can I get Deborah Messing in this movie?
Well,
Yeah.
okay, well, maybe as which my point. I mean, she's a great because of her history in the gay community with the show and everything. But I wonder if that's him not wanting to be Billy on the street in his real life.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a character.
Yeah, he
It's-
sees that. Yeah.
I think that's got to be truthful to him
Sure,
because
sure.
I mean, look at him in this movie and even look at him in interviews. Yes, he plays it up a little bit like his Billy on the street character, but he's a lot more
Subdued.
reserved. Yeah, he
Yeah.
is not the Billy on the street. Seriously, and I think it's a funny segment.
It's a
I love-
great bit.
But
I love
he's
that.
just
Those are-
yelling at people in their face, screaming at them.
Name a woman, and they're like,
And he just like yells at them and runs away. It's so funny. He did promotional Billy on the Streets to promote this movie.
Yeah.
And I only saw 2. I don't know if there's more, but he did one with Jack Black and one with Paul Rudd, and they're very funny.
He's the best.
Name a Jack Black movie. Name one, and the person can't. And you know that even if you knew the movies, being confronted like that on the street, you would freeze. Like
yeah,
you
I was
just-
like, who?
and it's so funny when they thought he was Zach Galifianakis, one of them, because he's got the big beard. And he's
Right.
like, The Hangover. He's like, no.
That was an interesting line in this movie where Bobby and Aaron are walking down the street and they're asking, what's your favorite movie? And Aaron says The Hangover. And it's one of those things that I don't even think about, but Billy Eichner's character is absolutely right. Like it's the highest.
the first
I don't know if it's the first thing, but it's pretty close. And
One of the first things when you meet the Bradley Cooper as the teacher.
Yeah, well, he is stealing money from children. But when he pulls up to Stu's house,
Right,
and
the joke,
and
is,
it's but like, and he's like, that's from 2009.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not that long ago.
Not that long ago. And it's like,
Look how far we've come, though. Like, you just absolutely could not do that nowadays.
absolutely
So,
not.
even
well,
though
I guess now hold on a second. They did it in Barbarian.
But he
to
was the
show-
bad guy.
to show he was the bad guy.
Correct.
Now, I will say in the somewhat defensive Hangover, Bradley Cooper's character is supposed to be a douche,
jerk.
but you're
Correct.
also supposed to
Yeah.
end up liking him
In the long run,
in the long run, and so that make it's
You're
like
not supposed to like the guys in Blazing Saddles that use the N-word, right?
Right,
Like,
yes.
there's no redemption for them,
Yes.
so you can make them do villainous
yeah, it's like
things.
you
It's-
don't get mad at 12 Years a Slave because somebody uses the N-word. They're a slave owner.
Right.
Like you're mad at them, but you're not mad at the film, right?
Right.
Like,
Sure,
it's
sure,
like
sure.
it's part of a larger tapestry of what they're trying to tell you.
Right.
But I also
Not necessarily with the Hangover.
No.
But
no.
This is pretty smart writing too, though, because not only is this making a good point about media and how far we've come and what was acceptable just a decade ago, Aaron also says, I'm not offended by it. It's my favorite movie. Like, I'm not that sensitive, which I think was kind of cool because he could see the whole movie isn't ruined because of one bad aged poorly line, right?
Right.
Yeah, I do agree with. I mean, as we probably on social media, we probably have these conversations about problematic art. You can still enjoy it while still having a conversation while why it's so stuck in the past. But I think rather than leave it in the past, we can have people can have discussions about how we can do better in the future, like them discussing The Hangover with Aaron saying, "Yeah, I like the movie. It's a product of its time, but."
Exactly.
It's
Agree. It's funny because when you talk about problematic art, I mean, there are people now who say the same thing about Will and Grace, right? Like,
Oh, sure.
I mean, the main character is gay, but the actor isn't,
Mm-hmm.
and it is one of those very kind of straight washed versions of what gay life looks like. But people forget that
At the time,
like, you mean, is it fair? No, but like, you have to take baby steps sometimes, and if they hadn't made those concessions and to get that into the mainstream,
and it hadn't have been the popular show it was.
right, you wouldn't get the next step.
Right.
Right.
You'd be robbed
Yeah.
of all the good
Yeah.
things that show brought. And so it wasn't perfect, but what is? And as
Yeah.
things age, we keep finding these imperfections.
I always think of the show Barney Miller.
Okay.
Well, we know that.
Sure.
But,
And
right.
so there are two gay characters on Barney Miller that are reoccurring. They pop up a couple times a season.
Okay.
And if you go back and watch it now, it can be a little cringy. Like but ultimately there's one police officer who's very put off by them, but for the most part, the cops are like, they're pretty nice to him, but the characters are very over the top by today's standards. But at the time, Barney Miller won awards from the gay community. They were working with the gay community to help them tailor these characters to be more truthful, but still work in a sitcom, right?
Sure.
And so, but now you go back and you're like, I don't know. But at the time, that was as good as it got, man.
Right.
Like,
Well, we've said that before, right? Where you just have to take. Bad News Bears is my always my go-to, right? Like, there is some language in that movie that is absolutely unacceptable.
Sure.
But you got to look at when it was made.
I am the same age as those kids, and
Right.
I can tell you that's what that world looked like.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And you just have to, and that to Matt, to your point, you just have to have a conversation.
But if you hide it, if you erase it
That's
from
the
history,
problem.
no one can talk about where we came from and how
Right.
far and learn from it. And I think that's a great point Matt made. Put the disclaimers at the beginning of the movies.
Those
Don't delete
cartoons,
the
right?
movie.
Those
Right,
those Looney Tunes.
but don't
cartoons.
delete them.
Yeah.
Put the disclaimer. Learn from it, because people are going to repeat the same mistakes if you don't show these things and teach them and say this was bad and we know it's bad.
This is unacceptable. This language is unacceptable.
Right? History repeats itself.
Yeah.
So I do agree. And actually, it's interesting, and this may be very topical, but right now the big discussion online, I'm sure Matt has seen it, is Blonde. People are going
yeah.
online and saying, if you like Blonde, you are a horrible person and you should have
This
your
is the
credit card taken
Marilyn
away.
Monroe
Yeah,
biopic?
I mean, there's a lot of people that the movie's like 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, right? You love it or you hate it, kind of a thing. Or, there's not a lot of middle ground there. But people are entitled to their opinion. And someone said something really, I think it was Chris Evangelista online. He says, when did we stop being able to view and discuss difficult art? Like, art doesn't have to be
2016.
but when you present art, it doesn't have to be either or like problematic. Maybe he said problematic. Sorry, I'm just off the top of my head. But when did we stop being able to discuss problematic art? Like, art doesn't have to be perfect and have no issues to be discussed or even to be enjoyed or appreciated. We can discuss it and we can talk about it.
Well, that's
but
the
now
whole
it's
point.
like, but
That's
people,
the whole point of art,
Right.
is to invoke a discussion.
but you've got a whole new mindset of people saying, well, there's this problem in it. And so if you like it, you are the problem. Or if you watch it or talk about it, you are the problem, instead of letting this art exist and people discuss it.
So you're saying we're not covering it next week?
I don't think we are, but not because of that conversation.
Just we'll kind of, this movie does follow the beats almost identical to your typical romantic comedy, where they get together, and then they get a little, things are moving in the right direction. They get a little too close. Aaron pulls back. We get to the Deborah Messing scene which is just fantastic, and then they end up like reconnecting.
When Deborah Messing gets so mad, and then
That's
she
the best
walks away,
part.
and then they're all standing there and like, "What'd you do to Deborah Messing?"
Right.
And she comes back. She's like, "The door is locked." Okay, I'll get this. No, I don't want you to do it. I want her to do it. Very funny.
They go to a Pride Fest in Plainville,
You got me.
wherever that was.
Yeah.
And we get a pretty fantastic
Provincetown.
Province.
There you go.
There we go.
Provincetown, yeah.
Rhode
A pretty
Island.
fantastic cameo from, I know him as the brother from Independence Day.
Harvey Firestein?
Thank you.
Oh, which
Yeah.
I mean,
Which I gotta-
That's a very Joe thing to.
I
That's
know.
where you
he
know
didn't
him
say
from.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
that was the
Yeah.
other one I was thinking of.
Okay.
But he's always the brother.
But Harvey Firestein is awesome.
He's a famous playwright. He wrote the book for La Cage aux Folles, which you would
Oh,
know
really?
is Birdcage, and he has a very famous play called Torch Song Trilogy, which was turned into a very mediocre movie.
Oh.
But the play is really good. So
The
yeah.
brother from Independence Day.
Yeah. So I mean, but think about that. He was writing the play La Cage aux Folles. I mean,
Yeah.
in the 70s.
Right. When was
right?
that?
And
But
the
there was
Birdcage was a huge movie adapted from that.
Yeah.
that's a remake though, right?
So it was
there
a French film.
There it is.
And then
Okay.
they made like 3 or 4 of them as French films,
Okay.
and then they took that and turned it into a stage musical, which then became a huge hit.
Yeah.
But it's also, you
And
could
he was
look,
in it. Harvey Firestein was in.
yeah.
Oh, was he really?
Mhm.
You,
Starred
you
in
could
it.
also look back at that and say it's kind of a straight washing version.
Sure.
Of, so it's
I
like
mean, when you look at Nathan Lane and
yeah.
not Robert.
Robin
Robin
Williams.
Thank
Williams.
you. I was like Robert. De
You know, they
Niro.
were
That's not
supposed to play opposite.
right. Oh, they true crimed it. The
Yeah.
True Detective did.
Yeah, they were. It was supposed to be
The
Robin
Way Back.
Williams was going to play the
Oh yeah, the way back.
The-
Good
Go
call.
way back.
Yeah.
the drag queen
Oh really?
character, and he was like, I think this might. I'd like to do it the other way.
Okay.
And Nathan Lane was like, sold.
But look
Yeah.
look at that movie and how mainstream the
It was
Birdcage
huge.
For
right?
sure.
I don't
Yeah.
think people today realize that was a massive movie.
Massive.
It was a
Huge
massive.
movie.
It wasn't a big gay movie. It was a huge movie,
Right.
right?
Mainstream
so,
massive
So
hit, yeah.
I haven't watched that movie in a long time, and I like the play. I've seen the play, but I haven't watched the movie in a long time, and there's probably dated things with it too. But
Sure.
again, you got to look at it at the time and how big it was and the representation. So I think to the
Teaching
whole
him to walk like John Wayne. That was great.
That's fantastic. That's so good. What a great scene. So they go to this Pride Fest, and they take their relationship to a different level.
Are you talking about the sex scene?
Yes.
Okay, I think this is another really huge step for them to take because again,
Well, they do it twice too.
but this is the big one, right?
There's the funny one where Aaron invites Bobby to go to the threesome,
Right.
and Bobby's not having a good time,
Right.
And they pull back, and of course Aaron is getting blown by these two dudes. He's like, "I'm gonna go ahead and go."
Yeah,
And
that's
he's like,
played
"Oh,
a-
you're leaving?" And then
Yeah.
there's the 4-way.
Okay, but this is the romantic love scene,
Yes,
right?
very much
Which
so.
they don't shy away from
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's a very
Right.
it's a sweet,
Yeah,
it's a
Well,
very
it's
well
a-
handled
it's-
love scene.
I mean, it sounds like maybe Bobby was the bottom and Aaron was the top, and they've switched it up, which I feel like I don't know. Maybe that's like a big deal in and having that kind of sex. I have no
it seemed
idea.
like it was for him,
For who?
for the Luke character.
Yeah. That's what I felt like too. Is like he's asking him to do what he's going to do, and it was definitely like a very touching moment between those two.
But it wasn't played for laughs. Like
Right.
that's
No.
what I think was so
was
special
handled very
in this
seriously.
mainstream rom-com, right? And with all the great things that we've talked about for it, is they don't shy away from it and they let them have a love scene,
Yeah.
and it's intimate and
Very
it's
much so.
sweet. And when it's all done and they're laying there, I mean, it's a sweet, touching moment, and it's just something that we haven't seen on a studio level.
No, I agree. It's no different than watching Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey.
Right.
It's the exact same.
Why should it be, right?
Right.
And that's what I think is so special about this movie and all the things we've talked about, for representation to the topics they handle. But when they put it out there and let them have a love scene, just like all the other romantic movies get to do.
But
you know?
I think the larger takeaway should be that this is not an eat your vegetables experience.
No.
Right? Like
No.
this is a laugh out loud funny movie.
Yeah.
I laughed out loud
Multiple
multiple
times,
times, and I'm a hard laugh to get. And, and
He's dead on the inside, folks.
Yes,
If
absolutely.
you've listened to the show, you right.
So I mean, so for all of that stuff that's good, it's also like it's just a funny movie. It also does this other stuff well. It doesn't have to undermine that part of the film to get a laugh. It never
Right.
does that.
That's exactly. It's the love, the stuff there. The romantic part of the romantic comedy is there.
Yeah.
And the just the topics like we've talked about, they're not played for laughs or done in a mean-spirited way to get
Right.
laughs like in the past other
Yeah. Oh yeah.
comedies have used.
Even an Apatow movie, right?
Sure.
Apatow movies.
I know
mean,
you're gay because
yeah.
right?
Right.
Which I mean
God
is
dang it.
which is like it's a very conflicting scene because you're
Yeah.
watching going like I don't know, but it's also funny.
It's also
but
it's also
it's
Rogan
also, like,
Rogan and Rudd.
Yeah.
You know, so like they're two lovable dudes.
right. They have this way of where it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it's coming from a place of hatred,
No.
but it's also like but the people that are going to watch it and pick up on it aren't
Yeah.
necessarily going to be as nuanced,
Sure,
right?
sure.
But the important part is that they know that, right?
Right.
And like they've grown. And people deserve a chance to grow.
Yeah.
And looking at old movies, no matter if it's 100 years, 50 years, 10 years, through modern lenses is not fair because
No,
it wasn't
I agree,
the
it's not
time.
fair.
It
Right.
doesn't make them bad people or Apatow just because it was in there. It was acceptable. There's a lot of things that were acceptable at all times of history and weren't right, but they were acceptable.
Right.
And so you can only
Yeah.
grow and learn from that.
Right. So they get close. Like they're a couple. Like they're gonna.
Despite their best efforts,
Correct,
they
correct.
end up
They
falling.
Well,
do,
the
like, they
big the
have
big deal was that there is a guy that went to high school
Right.
with Aaron, right? Is
Aaron.
it- okay.
Yeah, they played hockey together.
They played hockey together, and he was supposedly straight. And they even run into it at the movies when him and Bobby are out. They run into him and his fiance. Well, they find out through just social media or something that he broke it off with his fiance, and he came out as gay.
Right.
And so Aaron has always had this crush on this guy, and even told Bobby about it earlier. So when they have this holiday party, and they're
I
now
thought-
kind of a couple, and this guy shows up, he's like, "What's your view on monogamy and what
and
is
I
this?"
think that's a very good conversation to have because this entire.
But he has it. But it's not a good conversation to have
When you're drunk.
When you're face drunk.
Correct.
Like, and that was
Correct.
the thing. It wasn't from like an academic standpoint of like, so what are your views on monogamy?
Right.
It's
It was
like, so I met this guy, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
You know.
And Bobby is like, okay, like we'll give it a shot, and then
the four-way scene is really funny.
with
Well, yeah, because he says
Steven,
he's like,
it's-
I don't want to just go off with him. I want us to be with him.
But,
Yeah.
but okay, so like that's an interesting point, right? Like
Yeah.
Aaron is not saying I just want to sleep with. I want this new experience with you.
Right. I'm
I
not
think-
leaving you behind.
Right. I
Like-
want to do this with you, which I do think is better.
Well, I think Aaron's coming from a place of not being in a relationship or wanting one at all. This is a big step for him to be in this longish term, few months or whatever, with Bobby. And
Right.
so I think he's trying to do his best to not just totally give in to his base instincts, but like, he's
And
trying
you know,
to.
when the straight community looks askance at this sort of stuff from the gay community,
Right.
let's just be very frank. If men could get women to like this, they totally would, right? So, like, if you live in an ecosystem where it's only men, then this is what sex will look like.
Yeah.
And if you could get women to think like men, then that's what straight relationships would
Could
look
be.
like. And if you think otherwise, you're wrong.
Like then there's this other Steven, I think was his name.
Oh my gosh,
who
this
just
guy that
keeps
pops
trying
up.
to interject himself into
Yeah.
this, and they're just
The
like,
way he
"What are
pushes
you-"
himself in, he's
Oh
like,
my
"Hey,
God, it's so great.
It's very funny.
And then the buddy comes in like while they're in the middle of having this.
Yeah. Henry, the really funny.
Yeah,
friend,
yeah, and he was like, "Oh, hi, Steven," and he was like, "Ah," and like runs away. But one of the big plot, the thing that like gives you your conflict is Bobby says, "My entire life, my dad, they all accepted me."
Yeah, this is a good scene.
I think,
And
and you know where it's going, right?
Yeah,
Like
and
it's-
you're talking about the speech on the beach.
yeah, where he just
Yeah.
says they told me
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
tone it. They
And
all
you-
accepted me, but
And
they
I feel
told me to
like
tone it down.
this scene, as good as it is, there is no acting going on in this scene.
No, I think he's
this is
speaking from the
totally
heart.
him describing his life.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
Is
fair.
this after the mom thing?
No.
The
This is
blow up?
before the
Okay,
mom
okay,
thing. So
sorry.
he tells him this. He says, "My dad, my parents accepted me, but they always told me, dial it back, dial it back."
The thing I liked about the beach scene is how it ends with, and they were wrong. Like,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
ignored them
Right.
because I didn't know what else to do, and I was right and they were wrong.
Yeah.
and then also,
And Aaron accepts that.
and he's also bummed because his parents didn't live long enough to see it.
Right.
That like he, you know.
Yeah, his
Couldn't
parents are
prove him
both
wong.
gone.
Yeah.
Right. He's an orphan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
He's an
right,
orphan.
he's an
But
No,
you know,
it
it's
should adopt him.
yeah, it's funny because not funny, but interesting because it's like, you know, they talk sometimes about how the universal is in the specific, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, so that's a very specific experience to a gay man. But I also I really related with everything he was saying.
Well, yeah, you
because
said
it's
that
Like
earlier,
parents'
yeah.
acceptance.
yeah, because it's like my family was like, and I know this isn't, I'm not oppressed, and I know that this isn't related to sexual orientation, but my family was definitely like, no, take the job at the grocery store. Don't go be a DJ at an FM rock station.
Right.
What future could that possibly hold for you? No, don't go work at the rock club in East St. Louis. That's not a future. And it's like, but I ignored it and I did it
That's
anyway.
so funny you
and
say
everything
that.
led to you
And-
to where you are.
And I was right and they were wrong. So it's like, you know, like while I know nothing of the oppression or being, you know, shat on by society the way a gay man would, but I totally related to
well,
Everything
To
you
what he
just-
was saying, yeah.
Everything you just said is, I think of as Kevin Smith said this one time. He said, for the longest time, people would ask me why. Why are you going to do that? Why would you do that? And I just started asking myself, why not?
yeah,
Why wouldn't? And that's how I got. Honestly, that's how I got here.
yeah.
So
but yeah, parents not understanding is
Well, because they want what's best for you, and what's best is the safe choice.
They
or
think
not,
it's-
not best, but it's the
quote unquote
what's-
smart choice.
It's it feels safer to go like, yeah, you could probably end up a manager at a grocery store. That seems like a pretty solid existence, and
Yeah.
it's safe and it feels achievable in the way introducing
Being at a
Gin
rock-
Blossom Records doesn't.
Hey, now.
right? So you know,
He's like, wait a minute.
You say Jim Blossoms?
But yeah, that's a really good scene.
It is. So you
And
know,
I think Billy Eichner's actually really good in this movie. And
Yeah.
I say that not
He
thinking that I
is.
ever thought he was bad, but I didn't know
but
Billy
we,
Eichner
but we
could
don't
act like that.
We don't
Yeah.
know him as any other character but the Parks
Right.
and Rec Billy.
But
on the
that's what I'm
street.
saying.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and this was a great showcase of his
Yeah.
dramatic talents. And not only is he very funny as we know he can be, but he gets to do some heavy lifting, and
Yeah.
he's really good. In
He's
those
really
scenes. And I think what you said, I mean, he's speaking from the heart.
I'm not trying to disparage his performance by saying it's not acting. I'm
Right.
just saying I don't think it's very far afield from his personal experience.
He
Sure.
wrote the movie, so
Right.
like that's it.
Probably not.
It's not
And the
unfair.
same, in the same way that like as good as Pete Davidson was in King of Staten
Staten
Island, like there wasn't it wasn't a long walk.
It wasn't
Yeah.
a stretch for him
Yeah.
to be
but
that
I,
character.
But yeah, seeing as that he wrote it, I think it's very fair because it's like,
Yeah.
well, he wrote himself to say these things, and where did he get those ideas? You know,
and
it's
Apatow's
personal.
good
Those-
with finding the comedians and bringing that personal story
Getting
out
that
of
heart.
them. Because King of Staten Island, Trainwreck.
This is 40.
yeah, like it's
funny people.
Yeah.
like I know funny people kind of gets shit on.
It's
but
like two movies.
it is.
Yeah.
But I think that's got a
Yeah.
lot of heart to it.
Yeah,
You know.
so
So
Christmas time.
yeah, they
meet the
meet
family.
the family, and of course, we know that Bobby has said they told me to tone it down, and what's the first thing out of Aaron's mouth is, "Can you tone it down?"
Well, heartbreaking.
It is, and it's just like, oh, and you know it's coming.
Bobby's
You know
just
it's
being
coming.
himself, and his parents, even though maybe they're a little more closed-minded, she's still enjoying being around him. Like Aaron's the only one that has this idea of really like you need to not do what you're doing, and Bobby's like, yeah, she's loving the tour. Everyone's having a good time, but
And then
Aaron has this
dinner. It's the dinner scene that pushes it over the edge.
But you can tell growing up, Aaron has dealt with a lot of conflicting stuff with his parents, and so he's got this idea of you have to be this certain way because that's how he grew up.
Right.
Yeah.
So it leads to a massive blow up between the two, and they kind of go in their separate directions. Bobby goes to the club that they've met, and he just so happens to walk into the back, and who is Aaron making out with but the dude from the hockey team.
Right. But it's very much we see it before Bobby goes out there, and Aaron's very much, I'm not
He
gonna
does,
do
yeah,
this. I'm
but-
not saying right or wrong, but we do see at least to preface it that he's like, no, I can't, whatever, and then they do.
and
And of
just-
course Bobby sees that first.
Sees this, right.
But also, why did he put himself in that situation if he didn't? You know what I mean? Like,
It's a catch-22.
Aaron knew where he was going
Yeah.
and who he was going there with. So even if he said, you know what I mean? It's a
Right. It is what it, he made a mistake.
right.
That's the
exactly.
bottom line. So they break up. Like that's the end of that. Bobby is
He goes to the gym to get ripped, and
oh my god,
that's scene. Hey, bro.
Yeah, when he puts on.
Hey, bro, what do you got? Putting some weights on there.
There's actually a funnier. I think it was in the trailer
Yeah.
where the guy he asked him to spot him, and he's like, "I got you," and he's like, the guy's like, "Hey, can you spot me?" He's like, "Nope," and like he can't pick up.
I went back and saw some ad spots. There's a lot of stuff that didn't make it in. This is a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
So when and then of course they hook up.
But Bobby's doing this tough guy voice,
bro voice.
He
Yeah.
puts his hat on
Oh
backwards
my
like the
God.
other lifter has on, and then they hook up, and then afterwards, like their pillow talk,
He uses his real voice. He's like, "Oh my god!"
the guy's like, "What was that?
What happened to your voice? He's like, oh.
I'm sorry. I just
Yeah.
thought." He's like, "You get out of here right now."
And he was like, if I would have used my real voice, he's like, yeah, I would have still hooked up with you. And he's like,
Well, he said
oh.
maybe.
maybe.
He said maybe.
I
But
thought
then-
he said he was like, yeah.
But it also like
it wasn't very convincing.
They have-
it was like maybe.
I took it more because they were trying to make the point though of don't change for anyone.
No, I
And-
did. Yeah, but I
Exactly.
agree. But I also think the point is, it's like, yeah,
don't
like
know.
I do like
not
when he-
everybody's gonna be. People like what they like.
when
That's
he,
okay.
when he sees the Streisand poster, and he was like, oh
Yeah, like-
he's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's why it's one of my favorite scenes of the movie because it kind of hammers down the movie's message without
Yeah,
spelling
exactly.
it out for you.
Right. That's exactly what I really liked that too. Where it's like, yeah, don't change. Don't just be yourself. And if that person doesn't like you, this guy, maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't have. He says he would, but it doesn't matter. Like if people won't like you for who you are, then you're not meant to be with that
Right.
person.
it's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to like everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of speed through this. They break up. The
Well,
The
and
museum-
Aaron has this through line earlier where he says, "I couldn't be myself. I wanted to make these chocolates."
Right,
And this big, strong, tough guy, because Aaron is very masculine, very
much so.
works out of the gym,
Sports and
he's
all that
ripped,
good stuff,
sports,
yeah.
all that. And so he's like, "Me making chocolates," and Bobby says to him at that point in the movie, he's like, "Why not? Why can't you make your
You
chocolates?
do whatever
Like,
you want."
Right? It doesn't matter."
Exactly.
Yeah. So the museum is opening. Like they get the one scene we did not
Bowen
talk about,
Yang.
which was just great.
He goes to Bowen Yang, and he's this eccentric millionaire or billionaire. He has all this money. He needs $5 million from the museum, and Aaron's a financial guy. And so when you think he's not going to get the money, Aaron steps up and says, "Hey, we'll do whatever you want." And ends up being this roller coaster
of gay
demon
trauma or something.
It's
Yeah, it
horrible
was-
idea, but very funny. And I'm like, please show that later. And it comes
And
back.
they do,
But
yeah.
they get the $5 million. They can open the museum.
Right. So the museum's going on. It's going to open. They have Bobby and Aaron have gone their separate ways at this point. And I think Aaron must see it somewhere that it's opening, and they decide. I think he texts. Aaron is having a conversation with his brother, who I got to tell you can't figure that out. The brother must be adopted, right?
Oh, just because you look so different.
I mean, a lot different.
Yeah.
Could be,
And
yeah.
mom and dad are like Mayo white.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
know?
who knows? It's just hard to say.
But they're brothers, and he's like, just text him. Like, what? You're stupid. Why are you so dumb? So he
Well, I
texts
like
him.
you can see they've been distant for so long.
Yeah.
And you realize that
I'm telling you, there's like weird time jumps because the last time we see Aaron and Bobby together, it's Christmas.
and that's the big blow up with Bobby is being himself and the mom's a school teacher and he's
But then they see each other at a bar later, and he said like they have this discussion outside the bar, but they're not like there's no snow on the ground. They're wearing like lighter clothes, so there's like a big time gap between those two scenes.
it jumps around, sure. And there's a lot of stuff I think cut out of the
It's
movie.
global warming.
Also
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
But the big blow up that breaks them up is with the parents and
Yeah.
not letting Bobby be who he is, and they get into they're both in the wrong, I will say, in this situation.
I mean,
right?
Bobby even says he's like, I went out of my way to be too much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and-
he owns that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like in this scene, it's hard to watch because Aaron's saying tone it down, all this stuff, which is totally wrong to do. But then Bobby's being a total jerk and not respecting where he's like, like there was a middle ground there, and both of them were wrong. But that's the big blow up. And the mom is a second grade teacher, and Bobby's like, why won't you teach the kids about the gay stuff?
Which is
And-
like that's a topic going on right now.
Yeah.
Right,
I
in
mean,
school,
critical race theory, all that
very
stuff.
much
is,
so. And she's like, I think they're a little young, and he's like, okay, agree to disagree. But no, I can't. When he keeps going, and it's a big blow up moment.
Yeah. So the final scene of this movie is, Aaron decides I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go.
To
You know,
the
they
thing,
text
yeah.
each other, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to meet up later?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." It's very much like the grinder conversation, the bare bones conversation.
Well, they
of
have
like-
this cute. It's their little cute thing where he's just like, "Hey, what's up?" It's
Yeah,
just very
right,
basic
right.
kind of a text message
Yes.
they do throughout
Yeah.
the movie. Aaron takes it upon himself talking to the brother. The brother's like, "You need to
Go.
go win him back," doing the whole
Yeah,
like,
right. Go make a big
run to the airport, the big
Yes,
show, whatever the
exactly.
cliche thing is,
Yes.
the big thing.
Pretty much.
But he decides, I'm going to make those chocolates. I'm going to be true to myself. I'm going to be a chocolatier, and I'm going to make them for the opening.
Is that really what people that make chocolate are called?
Yeah, they're called chocolatiers.
I had no
Yeah.
idea. When they said that, I thought they were just making up a word.
No, that's a word.
Yes. Have you ever watched Willy Wonka? I'm pretty sure they
Did they
say
use the
he's-
word chocolatier in Willy Wonka?
Well, even in, I'm pretty sure in both versions. But have you watched the new one?
no.
Oh, okay. So I was gonna say it's in a
Ooh.
Are
song.
you crazy?
It is like Willy Wonka,
No.
the amazing chocolatier.
The Tim Burton
Yeah.
movie post Batman.
I like the Willy Wonka Tim Burton. But
I liked it.
I
I,
think
don't
it's
get
very-
why people hate.
It's very true to the source material,
Yeah.
and I think it's good and weird in all the right ways. Deep Roy, it's all good. But
Either
anyway,
way, they-
another
they-
subject.
they
We'll
get
see how Timothy Chalamet falls.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Wonka,
The prequel.
the-
yeah,
yeah.
right, right. Oh,
Yeah.
that's the story I've always wanted to know.
yeah.
So,
The burning
Maybe-
question.
Who knows? Maybe Paul King just wants funding for a third Paddington movie.
There you go.
yeah,
Exactly.
one for me, one for them.
Yeah.
So he, the museum goes off without a hitch. It's going wonderful. You've got the hall of gay trauma. Like, you've got people coming out of that.
You see
You've
the
got-
Bowen Yang's idea. They
Yeah,
actually
they
did.
actually did it.
He's standing like, wow.
Everything was great until 2016.
Yeah, right.
So
But he's giving a big speech at the
and then
opening.
here comes Aaron.
Who just performed Doja Cat or something, or
I
Dua
don't-
Lipa? He's
Yeah.
just like, they don't show it, but he's like, thank you. They had some huge star there.
Yeah, I wonder if that was like, we'll just throw a name out there and see if
See
we
if
can
they
get
will,
them.
yeah.
And if they can't, we'll just say
It
that
was
they were
very
just on
funny
stage.
referencing off stage, like, thank you, Dua Lipa. It was just,
So we get this song, and Aaron has said earlier in the movie that his favorite genre is country. So
that was a good joke. That was a,
Bobby writes kind of like a Garth Brooks style.
well, he says his
country-
favorite
Garth Brooks.
His musician is Garth
Yeah,
Brooks.
and he's
and
like,
then
Garth
Bobby
Brooks.
even introduces it as like the famous gay icon Garth Brooks. Like, it's such a random choice.
If you
but-
ever get a chance, Tom Segura from Your Mom's House has like a beef.
My mom's house?
Your Mom's House.
Okay.
Has like a beef with Garth Brooks.
What? Okay.
And it's to the point where Garth Brooks had to turn off comments in his comment section.
Oh, all
because all
Segura's
of the
people
all of the
went
Your
to-
Mom's House people went there
Oh,
and started
jeez.
asking him where are the bodies, Garth?
Oh
and
my God.
it's great.
I can't. Yeah.
It's so good. So
he wrote this song for him. You see him doing this, and we don't know how it's going to be used. But as soon as Aaron shows up, Bobby's like, I wasn't going to do this. I was never
He
going
did
to.
have it ready to go. I
But-
will say.
He had even trained other people to
Play
play,
the music.
on the song with
I
him.
know.
All right, we're gonna do that thing.
But he's like, I wasn't going to do this, but now I have a reason to. It's a
But I
very
will also say that feels like very much the sort of thing you see in a romantic,
romantic comedy,
It
right?
is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It
Yeah.
Absolutely.
is.
So it goes off without a hitch.
It's
and,
a good, sweet song. Like,
It
he
is.
does a good job performing.
and Bill
it.
Eichner's got a pretty good voice.
He sounds like he
Yeah.
sings it like Garth Brooks.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
yeah, for
and
sure.
I mean, It was Garth Brooks, right?
Garth Brooks is the guy that Aaron said he liked.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I was just making sure. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm not a big country guy, but I was.
But
pretty sure.
he was watching Brad Paisley.
That's what was.
Yeah.
Yes, there was something
Yeah,
confusing about that.
I thought that like he would like something a little newer than Garth
like
Brooks.
Luke
It
Bryan
felt
or
like
whatever.
something someone who doesn't know anything about country would say.
I know that one guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's funny because I remember seeing Brad Paisley when he's looking something up, and that's why I was confused because he said Garth Brooks, so I know what he looks like, and I'm
maybe.
like, that's not it.
I
Okay.
don't know.
But he
So-
sings a song. It's very sweet, and the lyrics are all about their relationship and all
Yes.
the things we've seen in the movie, and it's a
And
great.
they come back together, and there's a moment where Billy Eichner gets down on one knee. Again, very
That's
romantic
hilarious,
comedy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he's just like, will you date me for 3 months and then we reassess?
And he's like, yes, I will date you for 3 months. He takes a ring from someone else in this huge
Yes, gaudy,
costume jewelry.
yeah, right.
thing, yeah.
And that's how we get a flash forward to 3 months later, and the museum is doing fantastic. And,
Oh,
and the
with a
mom
joke-
is walking through.
The joke that they come back on, like during the movie, Aaron basically says like, this museum's kind of boring. I mean, you've got all this great history and stuff, but
Yeah.
where's the fun in it? And then Bobby's like, what do you want? Night at the gay museum? And it's
that's
just
what
a
they get.
throwaway joke, right? But then it comes back, and Ben Stiller actually recorded something. There was a joke about
There's
Amy
Ben-
Schumer.
Ben-
Playing
Amy
Eleanor Roosevelt.
and then you've
Yeah.
got Kenan
Kenan
Thompson,
Thompson's in
and then
there.
there's
Seth Meyers is Harvey
Yeah.
Milk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then they actually introduced that section of the wing as Night at the Gay Museum.
Yes.
It was a very funny follow up on
Did-
what seemed like a throwaway.
Did
gag.
Billy Eichner ever write for SNL?
I don't think so.
I-
The only reason I
off the top of my
ask,
head.
I feel like those are some pretty big SNL
But
guys.
Billy Eichner's
But
pretty,
he's
That's
wired
true.
into
I guess
that
he's
he's
world.
a pretty
massively
big in
successful.
the comedic. I
Yeah.
mean, he's
Yeah,
a
that's
big
true.
comedian. So
and getting those.
I mean, he got Paul Rudd and Jack Black to do. I mean, he does all the celebrities on the street, right? So like,
oh, sure.
he gets a lot of big names. and-
riding in the car
Yeah.
with Metallica.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
And I mean, he
Uh,
was on a show with Amy Poehler.
Also a good point.
So
That's fair. How long
yeah.
was he even on that show?
he was on the last, I think, 3 or 4 seasons. He comes in about the halfway point. I
Okay.
believe, yeah.
Okay. And so we see Aaron's mom walking a second grade class through, and she's like, "This is wonderful. Like, this is such a good idea." And then like kind of the end of the movie is like, "Well, it's been 3 months. Like, would you like to reassess?"
Well, and
He's
that
like,
tag was really funny too. When she goes, this thing like scans you or does a questionnaire or something about what percent might
Yes.
you or where are you on the scale, and it's like you're a 0.2 bisexual.
And
And
she's
she's
like,
like, oh,
uh,
which was a callback, I guess, maybe to the you're saying Unmarried with
"I'm married with children." She comes out as gay.
okay, so
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
but it's just a funny thing.
But
to where,
she has like she is the Ned Flanders to Al Bundy's Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then they talk about kids,
yeah,
and that's how it ends.
where where Aaron's like, "Do you ever want kids?" And he's like, "No," and he's like, "Oh, come on!" And it's very sweet. I think the relationship was really sweet, handled well. It was a very funny movie. I liked both of them. I thought they had good chemistry. I did like the actor.
I
that played
totally hear
Aaron.
you. I just
think he was
whatever-
very charismatic. Obviously, it's super handsome, and he's a Hallmark love interest guy, right?
Right.
Perfect casting. I really enjoyed it.
No, I think this is I miss rated R comedies.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I land. Is like I think rated R comedies, when done right, are amazing. So,
Yeah.
and this is a great
This was a
example.
big
This is
gamble
it's a huge
by
gamble.
Universal
And
to
it does not appear to be paying off.
Oh no,
which
really?
is a shame.
Yeah, the box office is really
Yeah.
Dang.
But
like
It actually kind of hurts me that it's
Totally,
not doing
man. I
so
get
well.
that.
But, hopefully what they do is they take this as an opportunity to, they did something with this movie, right?
Yeah.
They made a statement. They put this movie out. This is a movie. First of all, not even just because of the two gay leads and the subject matter, but comedies now are dumped on streaming. That's
They
where
are.
comedies
Yeah.
go, right?
Yeah.
People are not going to the theater for comedies because they know that they can watch 100 on Netflix. There's one every week or 3 a week that come out on streaming. And if you
can
don't see
break up your binging of Dahmer
Yeah.
with like
Yeah.
comedy.
But if you don't see it in the theaters in a few weeks, it's on streaming, right? So
Speaking of LGBTQ,
That's a
off
big-
the tag.
they had
Yeah.
to remove the tag.
Yeah,
It's
that's a
probably
big
not a bad idea.
controversy.
Yeah.
But the point is that studios are not releasing comedies in theaters. They're
Yeah.
going straight to streaming. And this is a movie where that shouldn't have been relegated to streaming.
Yeah.
It's important enough. It's historic in
Yeah.
its content and what they do with it. And I'm glad they put it out there. And hopefully they don't write it off as, oh, this was a bad decision. Hopefully they knew that it's not just because of subject matter. Comedies
Well,
just aren't
I
playing
also,
like they
I also
used to.
think October, and I've
We've got all
Why-
these horror movies out.
that's what I'm saying. Like, and it has
Well-
been a murderer's row of horror movies
Yeah.
recently. They've been
Yeah.
really good, and I just don't know about the timing. Right,
Yeah.
like you've got Smile that I think it also was getting really good reviews and was doing really well. And like you said, it's October, and
Yeah.
people are going to go see a horror flick over a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
So I hope they don't take the wrong lessons. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
No, it's a very good movie.
I think it would have been better if they released it in August.
Sure.
August was it, or was it September? I think September. There was like nothing came out.
Yeah.
It seemed like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wish they would.
But on the flip side, do we really think people were out there saying, "Do I go see Smile or do I go see Bros?"
I don't know. Man.
I don't know.
I also
I
don't
honestly
think it's
don't
the
know.
best title.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I get what they're doing with it, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's
but
fair.
I love it. I would say it's one of my favorite movies of the year. Go see it. Not just to support a movie that's kind of a historic moment, but go see it because it's a great movie.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. Like I said, it's not an eat your vegetables
No.
experience. This is a fun, funny movie.
That's what makes it so clever. Like you
Yeah.
said, the thing that makes it great is that it doesn't have to stray from the conventions,
Right.
right? This is a movie about human beings
Yeah.
in a relationship.
Yeah, they
and
just
so,
they take the template and just work their own story into the template.
which is
Yeah.
great. It just shows because people are people no matter what, right? It
Yep.
doesn't have to be, oh, why does this seem like every other romantic comedy? Every other romantic comedy seems like every other romantic
Right.
comedy.
Exactly.
There's no reason this
Yeah.
can't work.
it is
for this story.
rare that something breaks that mold.
Yeah.
For sure.
But this movie does in its own ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very clever,
Yes.
very smart, and important, but not in an eat your vegetables way.
Yeah.
In an entertaining way.
Yeah.
For sure. So anyway, I guess that's it for this one. Let's go around the table and everyone can say where to find them.
This is Joe. You can follow me on the Twitter at JoeyButts, BUTTS21.
This is Kevin. Follow me on Twitter at Kevin R. Brackett.
And Matt, where can they find you?
On Twitter at FilmGuy619.
Awesome. And you can find me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at Facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. You can find the show online, Facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. And of course, don't forget our Patreon, Patreon.com/Real Spoilers. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, Perry used to love Billy.
Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, 'cause we